Thank you for taking this time to just be with us today and knowing that you can stay on as long as you feel called. You can pop back in at any point. I'm going to add, oh, hey, sweetie. Hey, Lizzie. I'm going to add a few links right now, just before I forget, of different ways that you can find me and my YouTube channel and all that goodness, because I usually forget. Boom! All right, so for those of you that have been here before, you probably know the drill. This is about an hour-long opportunity for me and the Invisibles to kind of create a space, a sacred space for you to ask any questions and also just to listen and hear what wisdom that they have and want to move through me, through them. And so the Invisibles are a group of spirit guides that I've been working with since I was a young girl, and have been kind of going through a process of training with them, and I've got to the stage where I feel confident enough and willing enough to allow them to kind of speak through me in a form of channeling. So if you have a question, this is a great opportunity to just post it on the thread, and between me going in and out of trance, I'll see who's next, and I'll get through as many as I can in the hour. So these questions can be, hello, Emily. Hello, Tommy. So these questions can be anything from a personal question about your own life. It can be a collective question, a planetary question. It's really up to, whatever you feel is burning in you or wishes to be received. And knowing that the answers also they can really apply to many people, because a lot of the answers and how they answer can be very universal. So another thing I wanted to add at this time is that if you are needing to jut out and you don't have time to sit around for the whole transmission to get to your question, you're completely welcome to just put that question on, and I'll record it and I'll record the answer for you. And then I'm going to send the minutes at the end of the session so that I'll be able to, I'll link you to when your answer came through. So that's a new little thing we're going to be doing today. So the first thing hey, Fallon Magoo. So the first part of this, how this works, is I'm going to ask my own question and go through that process so you can get an idea of how they answer in their own ways. And then I'm going to go through, and whoever's questions are next will go in that order. So blessings to you guys all, and here we go. I also cough really awkwardly as a process of clearing, so I'm trying to stop it, but if you hear coughing, I'm okay. It's just my process. All right, so the question that I have is connected to something that's been moving through me around how do we make these huge leaps from what's comfortable for us and what we think we're capable of doing, and then to these what might seem like 5 stages ahead of us. And my question with that is, in my own life, I feel like I have these goals that can feel kind of far because of my own construct of how I'm going to get there and what the logistics of the situation are, and all of these mental constructs that in some way kind of limit my capacity to just go for it, or I feel like it's always this carrot further and further away from me. And recently I've been working with how can I take these huge leaps, and I know kind of like the leap of faith, but these massive leaps, and just completely trusting in being held by what I'm leaping towards or falling, and so in regards to a leap that I'm making towards wanting to participate in something that I cannot afford at all, but I feel really called that I'm supposed to be there. And so I'm going to just ask them about the question, how do we make these huge leaps? And how do we go from there if we fall or if we don't, if we're caught? So here we go. Does the running jumper, the sprinter, the one that hurdles, that leaps over the obstacles in front of them, do they train to run? Do they train to leap? Or do they train to fall or to meet the edge that they're seeking? They train for all of it. They practice so that they're capable of trusting the moment they know they must take off, and trusting that surrender into the process of flying and floating or being projected across the hurdles in their life. And then they practice and they train to know how to land and continue, because there's more hurdles to come. Is that correct? So in your life, you must understand, are you at a place where it's important to prepare to lift off? And is it a hurdle that's ahead of you? Do you have time to prepare for it? Are you aware that maybe in 6 months, this hurdle, this great need for you to persevere, to take a huge leap, might be coming then? But the thing is, we can stop our trajectory at any moment. We can stop the race that we're in at any moment. And if it is in stopping that you're capable of observing just enough to remind yourself why it's worth you taking that leap, then stop. Because if you are leaping and you're not sure that the destination is worth the amount of courage and trust and stamina that is requiring of you, then you might fall halfway through. You might not make it to the other edge. And you might continue to create situations in your life where you feel that the universe is not meeting you, that you're desiring things and you're not actually finding the fulfillment in them. Because in some way, your urge to succeed is stronger than the reasons why it is important to make your goal. So the urge is something that is primal. It's a drive, it's a spark, it's adrenaline. The urge is the thing that motivates us. But the reason is what helps motivate the mind. Okay? And the mind needs reason to validate the repercussions that they're worth it. So in order to make these leaps that Sarah's talking about, you must balance and find harmony with your primal urge and instinct, that magnetic pull that's drawing you to say yes to something before you, and create space for your mind to teach yourself, to inform yourself how this is going to improve your life, how this is going to improve the life of others, how this is imperative that you at least try. And if your mind and your urge can meet, if the validation and the motivation is strong enough, then that urge and that fire will be able to be met with the forces that give you the capacity to integrate and assimilate the next stage. So that's what we want to share. All right. I actually did a bunch of hurdle when I was young, and I do remember that moment of just seeing these, being this young, this like 8-year-old or something, and seeing, running full speed and seeing this something like almost half as tall as me or more, and just being like, well, I hope my body has the strength and can remember how to leap over that. And sure enough, it did. And sometimes it didn't, you know. And I remember the times that it did, though, just that feeling. And so I know I'm going to bring that feeling, that feeling of success in trusting our urges and trusting our body and trusting our natural desires to be strong enough to support us when we leap. So I'm going to see. Oh, thanks, Tamara, about my cough. I had somebody get very upset about it. My last transmission I did. All right, so I'm just going to look up here and see which question, who's coming first with the question. Hello, where? All right. So here we go. The first question we have. Oh, do we have no questions? Come on, you guys. We're here for you. So for anyone that's jumped on or that's here right now, you know, this is an opportunity for you to be daring and post a question that can be for yourself, for the collective, for humanity. Oh, hey, Emily. Yes, we got a question. So you can also put a question, and if you don't have time to stick around to when it's your turn, though after Emily's, there'll be usually about like 5 to 10 minutes per transmission. So you can either come back, or if you ask a question, I can answer it and then give you the minutes when your answer came through, so you can listen to it on your own time. So the question that we have from Miss Emily is, what about the grief that comes with letting go of where we are when we take those leaps? Ooh. I'm going to repeat that. So what about, oh, yay, hey, David, you're next after Emily. So what about the grief that comes with letting go of where we are when we take those leaps? And so for anyone that just popped on, the leaps are just the leaps in life that seem well beyond what we're capable of, you know, fulfilling or completing. But something in us knows that it's the only way to truly move forward is trusting in those leaps. So, but yeah, there's grief, because when we leap, we are letting things, you know, there are things that we're leaping away from. There have to be. And they've usually been the things that have been supporting us in some way. So let's see what they have to say about that. You must remember that the emotions that you hold dear to you may not always be the ones that you feel are supporting you or strengthening where you're going. Because the feeling of grief is an emotion that has the possibility of sharing with us how important this life is, how important our connections are, how important the development and the process that we go through as a human is. Because when the change comes, or when the premonition of the change comes, we can realize that that change will require a sort of commitment or exchange. The change will require exchange. And those exchanges can be something simple. It can be something like, a place of residence. I know that's simple. It can be something like your community that you hold dear to you, that has supported you. That change can be a way of thinking, a belief structure that has worked so well, but has to be completely re-examined in order for you to actually grow to your potential. And so the grief comes with understanding what collapses when we're not capable of supporting it fully. And in some ways, for you, Emily, too, for some ways, what collapses is ready to change. So even if it's something that may have seemed the utmost important quality of lifestyle, support group that you've had, you can't quite understand how to navigate without those dynamics. Your change, any collapse that happens with the leap that you take, is actually recreating a dynamic of more potential growth to come. Not just for you, but especially for the others connected to your change. Because when you choose to take these leaps, you are creating a statement with your actions for the world and for your community, for yourself, that you are willing and open and trusting enough in the greater picture to understand that all beings benefit from following your heart choice. This can be controversial. How can all beings benefit? How can the beings in your life that are heartbroken benefit? How can what you've created that has helped so many and now is stopping or ceasing, how can that be a benefit to all those that it helps? Because we do not need to understand the greater construct, the greater tapestry that's at play. Because when you make these leaps, you are actually creating a greater opportunity for more beings to make the leaps themselves. And in some cases, the structure of support we may have been helping or providing for other beings is actually what has been holding them back from creating that leap themselves. So the grief, to sum it up, if the grief is giving you and feeding a part of you that wants to honor all that you've given, then give it the space. Honor that grief. Allow that grief to move through you. But you must claim the boundaries around when you are ready to hold space for that grief and when you are ready to hold space for the courage and the strength and the determination that it is requiring of you to take that leap and to be able to successfully continue once you land. Thank you. Woo! So that was for you, Emily, my dear, and for all of us that I'm sure at some point in our life we've had to take a leap of faith. I mean, even just the process of learning how to walk has required a great sense of stamina and determination and many falls and probably lots of tears, you know, and actually so much of where we've come in life has required leaps from small to big. So I want to commend you and just honor all the leaps of faith that you guys have taken in your lives to take you to where you are. And I'm sure if anyone can understand the importance of taking those leaps, throw some hearts across. You know, if you've experienced just the power of, you know, what our lives can look like compared to what we've been living, you know, and what that bridge brings us to in ourselves. So thank you all. And the next question we have, and for anyone else popping on, feel free to put a question on the thread, and me and the Invisibles will get to it. Oh, and me and the Invisibles will get to it as soon as we can. And if you can't hold on for the whole transmission, I will send you, oh, there's the hearts. I will send you guys the minutes of when your answer from them is. So getting to David. Hey, David. Hey, neighbor. So David's question is, do you believe our DNA is going through a transformation? And if so, how are we being affected? Okay. Well, I have my beliefs on that, and I might get into it after, and let's see what the invisibles have to say about that. So do you believe our DNA is going through a transformation, and if so, how are we being affected? Okay. We have different understandings of your question. One of the understandings that makes most sense to us is acknowledging that there is almost a holographic DNA that comes with each of your bodies. There is the structure, the blueprint on the physical plane, and then there is almost as though you have a second essence or another aspect of yourself that is more on the ethereal, the astral, the unseeable plane, but quite immersed, quite enmeshed, and in fact imperative to being human. So what's happening and how we see this is that the DNA itself is linked with the capacity to receive information and almost programs like a telephone wire between the astral, the energetic DNA patterns, and then your biological. Because the biological body, the earth body, the physical plane body is actually quite slower. Whereas what's happening on the ascension level and what has already happened that we are catching up to on the physical plane is embedded in the frequency of this holographic DNA. And so what happens is that there is a linear and non-linear existence happening. There is an existence that is connected to your ancestral, your biological components that you've been inherited by being in the vessel that you're in, each of you. And so the energetic DNA is capable of actually moving in nonlinear time. So what can happen is that imprints and codes that have been stored from your ancestors can actually be affected in some ways as the vibrations that are shifting are catching up with themselves. So this is complicated. Let's see if we can clarify more. The patterns in your life, in the belief structures you hold, in the way that your body interacts with its ecosystem and environment, are very much related to the genetic patterns that you've inherited. However, the ones that are not related, that come more from the soul plane, they also have an influence. So these patterns are more susceptible to the increase in frequency of the collective, of the human race. Also the frequencies as the planet is receiving more information from the sun, from the outer orbits. But in order to understand that if the DNA is itself transforming with the shifts that are happening on the planet, the DNA itself is actually simpler than we can comprehend. The actual, what stays the same in DNA is actually quite simple. And that simplicity is something that is immaculate and perfect. And what changes and what is changing is the imprints, the energetic imprints, the soul imprints, the vibrational encoding of the astral or the energetic DNA, which is what's actually affecting your beliefs, your mood swings, and the beliefs itself, which are affecting your body. The thought forms, things like that, those are being affected by this astral energetic DNA, which is changing because it can only change. It must evolve in order to allow each species to evolve with what's necessary of it during the times. It's a little complicated, but that's the answer we have. All right. So that was just an answer regarding DNA, and is it shifting, and is it going through a transformation, and how are we being affected by that? So that was their answer. And for any of you just popping on, just saying this is a great opportunity to put a question, I'm going to get to Tamara right now. So Tamara, my dear, Tamara's question, Tamara's question is, can the invisible speak to cultivating love and compassion towards a person with which you have difficult relations, but where it is necessary or required to interact regularly? I'm going to repeat that again. And so for everyone, just knowing that sometimes these answers, allowing them to be for you as well if it's pertinent. So if this is a question that you also have, just allowing these answers to know that they're going to you as well. And if it's something very specific to Tamara, I will use her name. So for this question, can the invisible speak to cultivating love and compassion towards a person with which you have difficult relations, but where it is necessary or required to interact regularly? All right, let's see. We can feel the grief. We can feel the grief between all beings connected, Tamara. Because all beings connected understand how important harmony and ease is, but are going through the process of having to realize that each of us, each of you, all you listening, we're human as well. And there are ways that we are affected, whether we consciously desire or not, to be affected by our surroundings. When there are people in your lives that are in some ways karmically entwined with you, soul allies, they can be beneficial. In fact, they usually are beneficial, even if they may seem like the worst antidote to the venom. You see, the people in your life, the person in your life tomorrow, or people, what's going on for them is possibly a feeling of being unable to access the surety and sincerity within themselves during this time of challenge. And when they see you, perhaps they are feeling not revenge, but this feeling of, how can you have that surety, that security regarding something that maybe they once had? And so in order for both of you to move past the hurt and the hardship that does not have space yet to fully heal or mend or transform, you must see it as that. Sometimes in our lives, there is not the space available to give a process the real support it needs between people to actually mend itself. Sometimes it's because of that lack of space or spaciousness that people do not trust in opening up any more vulnerability or opening up new ways of exploring harmony, because they're depleted. They might not have enough energy to feel that they can follow through. In some cases, we would almost suggest that's when an exterior help from the outside, somebody who's not immersed, tangled in this dynamic, can come into your lives if there's a desire, if it is, if a child's involved, if it's something that truly does need more love. Oh, they're popping out. They want me to talk with you. So I'm just going to listen to them and use my own discernment. So Tamara, kind of what they're trying to share is, maybe you can answer below, like, have you been able to, reach out to people? Like, is this person that you're communicating or that you're talking about, is it somebody that's open to some sort of exterior like counseling or like support between? Is it a connection that is important enough, or you guys are close enough with what you guys are needing to meet in that you both would desire to have some form of mediation? Like, is mediation something that would be helpful for you guys? You can answer. I'm just waiting a moment. Because there's different people in our lives, and so in our lives, sometimes when we have people that we have to interact with on a daily basis or regularly, it might be someone that's more, maybe somebody like a coworker, where outside of life we might not have any relevance. But if it is someone that's connected to a relationship, just say it's like, okay, message received loud and clear. All right, well, then that's great. Mediation. Yes, and if there's anything I can do, Tamara, personally, you can always ask if that's open. So thanks all who's just joined. And I want to say also, if people want to share this video, you're completely welcome to. Thanks, Iris Eve. Oh, I'm live right now. Okay, so if anyone, I'm going to just move up. So for anyone that just jumped on, this is an opportunity to ask a question, and hopefully we'll get to it. I think we've got room for possibly 2 more questions, and I'm just going to see the next person that popped on. And so these questions can be universal, they can be planetary, they can be personal, and I'm going to be working with the invisibles, and they will answer to the best of their ability. So moving up, let's see. The next question in line, we've got, hey, Emma Cat. Let's see. I want to see the next question. Oh, there we go. So, here's all the questions. They're rolling in. All right. So for Stephanie, my creativity is really taking off. Advice in balancing, not them, it's Satara. Facebook must have got you with your name. All right, so for Satara, she says, my creativity is really taking off. Advice on balancing family. My best helpers are moving out and I am feeling a need to hire a helper. I'm riding a wave and just wonder if there's any advice. Oh, ghost account, sorry. All right, so my creativity is really taking off. Advice in balancing family. So this person specifically, I know, has a quite a large family, and is an amazing creative individual. So this is a great question for any of you too that can relate. with having those polarities in yourself and how understanding how to blend them, and then realizing, do you need help, and what kind of help does that look like? Okay, let's see. Aw, love to you, Athena. All right. Well, we think that it's more important for you to be focusing on what caliber of helper do you need. Because when you're refining your life, when you're refining the creativity, it's your outlet for creativity. That must go into all areas of your life. So perhaps there's a way that if you are feeling a need to have more support with your family, instead of maybe resorting to what that looks like in the past or your basic understanding, what about starting to drop into who is a new being that, or helper or support network person? What would that being look like or feel like for you? Who is this new friend that is imperative to the flourishing of your family and your life, yourself too, your creativity? Because refining who you're looking for and seeing them instead as an exterior person coming in, seeing them as almost manifesting or cultivating a call out for Creator to provide you, or Goddess to provide you with an amazing ally that is so perfectly matched to where your children are at and what their needs are right now, that they might actually be able to provide a whole new level of support for the development of your family. And in that way, the part of you that wishes to be creative will feel that you'll have more of your creative outlet, because you'll feel completely safe and trusting that your children, that your family is receiving the inspiration and the motivation that they need to thrive themselves. Because we see with you, Zatara, is when you don't feel that your family is being fully nourished, then that's when you may hold back fully how you wish to express or go in your own career path, or not quite the word, but we see this splice, this feeling that you either have to be feeding that in your family, or you go out and your family's malnourished in some way. So to reestablish a new observation, a new point, a new declaration, that when you are asking for help, when you are seeking support with your family, this is support that is not just to help you be creative, but is actually going to help all beings in your family be more creative, to thrive, if that's helpful. Yay! I hope you find that amazing being, or not, but it felt good. It felt good feeling this new ally that you're calling in to your family, and seeing them as an ally, as a support network that is, not just a babysitter. No, you need someone spectacular, someone that you trust in the creative development of your children with and your family. So that when you come home, that creativity or whatever you've been, practicing is home. It's there. It's buzzing out of the children, that everyone is flourishing from this choice. So I love you, my dear. I hope that was helpful. And moving on. So the next question we have is, we actually might have room for 2 more answers. So we have Miss Crystal Kaleidoscope from Vancouver, Canada. And hi, Lizzie. And so Lizzie says, I'm in a swelling wind of inspiration at the moment, dear Invisibles. The morphic field of Islamic sacred geometry and architecture is speaking deep into my bones. She said the wasp's beings are calling me to it, and one just flew by if you saw that. These two buildings dedicated to two princes is whispering to my princely nature. Dear Saera and the Invisibles, do you have any suggestions as to anchor this field in my being? Interesting. So I'm just going to read this one more time to understand. I'm swelling in a wind of inspiration at this moment. The morphic field of Islamic sacred geometry and architecture is speaking deep into my bones. The wasp beings are calling me to it. These two buildings dedicated to two princes is whispering to my own princely nature. Dear Saera and the Invisibles, do you have any suggestions as how to anchor this feeling in my being? So I'm just going to sum it down a little bit. Kind of what I'm going to ask them, with all of that, and they're going to consider all of that, but, how do we anchor these aspects of ourselves, these almost other lifetime aspects, these qualities, these other, these energies from different cultures, when they speak to us, how do we anchor what is wanting to come through this connection, or how to create this grounding in these connections? It's kind of what I get from that. I hope is that what you're thinking about? So grounding these different connections that we have on a soul level with different cultures, with, possibly from previous lives, and bringing them into the present in a way of anchoring. In this specific one about Islam. Let's see. We'd like to say wear it, dress it, speak it. For you, Lizzie, and knowing that you're capable of embodying the energies that wish to move through you through movement and dance and garments. But when you're in a place of feeling a very specific culture, when it is speaking to your bones, sometimes it may be important to explore that language of that culture. And so by actually learning how to maybe have certain poems or prayers, and then, translating them and learning how to create those sounds, because a culture and the language that moves through it, the language itself holds almost an akashic, holds a record, holds a collective record and wisdom. So when we make these sounds and we acknowledge that they have been spoken by generations and generations to express emotions, to determine outputs, to explore life, these sounds, these languages are actually going to help you anchor this culture into your being without being able to realize that, to truly become a culture is not necessarily entirely possible if you're not fully immersed in it and living in it and breathing it for your life in some ways. But the cultures these days are so sometimes diluted. So for you, Lizzie, when this culture that you're speaking to, figure out what era it is in Islamic culture. Maybe when were those structures built? And do a little research. Maybe find someone from that era, find some writing from that era that you can go and speak. And to just allow your dedication to just learning some of this language help you ground it. And maybe because you are in a city, or you'll be in city, going to places, if there is these temples, if there is an Islamic space of prayer that you're capable, that's in the city that you're in, even just going, seeing if there's a way that you would be welcome to sit in prayer, possibly, if that's appropriate. But grounding and anchoring sometimes takes dedication to show yourself and whatever energy or spirit's moving through and wanting to be witnessed, that you have the time to devote just a little bit of your life force to having the resources to embody enough that you can feel that whatever message is wanting to anchor through you, whatever vibration is seeking to move through you, can have a seat to sit upon. Yay. So that was for you, Miss Crystal Kaleidoscope, Lizzie. And so this is going to be the last question. And then I'll get my daughter, get ready for her. So this is from my dear Mary Isis. And her question that she can think of is that her beloved is having a challenging time quitting. Well, this is the backstory. Quitting a long habit of smoking tobacco. So what is nourishing, what is some nourishing support I could offer him that he could offer himself to overcome this habit? Can you speak about these tobacco spirits? That's a big one, because tobacco's big, and I know I have my own understanding that I've worked with throughout, my life, trying to understand the spirit and how to work with this plant medicine, how to honor it, how to create boundaries, how to support others in reestablishing, their connection in a healthy way. So let's see what the invisibles have to say about, for those in their lives that are not capable of untangling or disengaging from the unhealthy aspects of a relationship with a plant spirit, if that makes sense. So, because, I think it's important to realize that you don't have to totally disengage 100% with an ally, a plant ally that has been supporting you and has created created a commitment in some way with this ally. But how can you disengage from what is unhealthy? What is pulling you back from truly being able to thrive in your life because of these connections? So this is about tobacco. All right. With any root, there is some sort of stem. And with any stem, at one point, if it's thick enough to support such a root structure, there was a leaf. There may have been a flower. There may even have been a fruit. So, when understanding what is the hardest part about disengaging with a substance that is not supporting one's health or vitality, you have to realize that there is a way of getting to where the root system has grown beyond what you can see. Sometimes with addiction, sometimes in people's lives when there is something that they're unable to disengage from, there may be a habit or a belief that by cutting away everything that has grown from that, every action, by cutting away in taking that substance, by not being able to see that substance in their life, it's like taking a slice out of that plant. You may not see that plant, but if the root system is strong, then buried beneath that plant is still growing. That addiction, that desire for life is still growing. And it will shoot, it will grow up through that stalk you cut down. Because in some way, the simplest way of seeing any addiction is life, a desire to live. For at some point, this habit became related, or there was a pathway, a neural pathway, with life, with enlivening, with bringing more to one's life. So when something is unhealthy and it is taking away from a quality of life, but a person continues to be unable to fully stop the cycle of personal sabotage, it's important to actually get into the root system itself. And realize if you are in a place, or your partner is in a place, that it is imperative that they trust that whatever that relationship meant to them, that the root of that connection, beneath all of it, you see, how do we say it? We're almost going to turn back, go rewind. Because before the root grows, or the stem grows, there is a seed. And so what your partner needs to do is they need to understand and revert to that seed that had them plant the desire for tobacco and to engage with tobacco, to intake tobacco in the first place. And if this happened when they're a teenager, they need to go way back and trust that they're capable, through a series of questions you can ask them, if that's helpful. Why did you inhale your first breath of smoke of tobacco? Why did you inhale your second? Maybe it was how that made them feel. Then go into, well, how did this made you feel a certain way? Okay. What else in your life makes you feel that way? And if there's nothing else in their life that makes them feel that way, then that is the issue. Because that seed is going to continue to grow. Because if it represents something that is unable to be replaced, then deep down, the part of one's psyche sees it as actually important and crucial to a part of themselves, because they have created such a dynamic and exchange that the tobacco, in some way, they feel like it is themselves. It has fulfilled a need in themselves that cannot be fulfilled without it. That's where addiction comes in. Feeling that you are unable to be complete with your existence without this external need. But we understand that breathing in some ways is an addiction, no? But finding what is something that can be replaced, that gives that same life force, but that doesn't take away from the stamina and the flora and the wealth and the health of their bodies. And the last thing we have for tobacco is to maybe create, in the time and as you're transferring between, or your partner or somebody in your house moving between the addiction and intaking the addiction, to ceasing, but still having those addictive qualities, those cycles within them, creating an altar. Creating, oh, woo, sorry. So just, I'm going to finish that one. They want me to finish what they were saying. So the image I had was creating like a little altar or a space on your altar for anyone that is moving through tobacco addiction, where on that altar, you know, creating it for tobacco. You know, and if you're capable of growing a plant, that would be amazing if that's an option for you, or somebody that's, you know, desiring to quit. And to realize that there needs to be a new establishment and connection with that spirit. And so creating an altar, creating a place where you are able to honor and see that spirit. And if it's something that, you know, you can bring it flowers, you can really do whatever feels like it's honoring of that. And even if it's, you know, you can connect with different cultures maybe that you might be connected to you, and that work with tobacco. And maybe if they have any, you know, I almost see this image of these like symbols, like this artwork, like this, like printing out even some like beautiful visionary artwork or ceremonial artwork of the tobacco spirit, of tobacco itself, having that on the altar, creating this sacred space for tobacco to live in your home, if you have a home. And then if you're feeling the urge to smoke, if your partner's feeling the urge to smoke, then with that urge, going over to that altar, if possible, and offering the tobacco to the tobacco. Because in some way, there has been, you know, I see this image of tobacco isn't here to harm us, you know. The spirit of tobacco is not here to hurt people. When used correctly and when honored, it's actually here to, it's providing its unique vibrational self to humanity. Some people say grandfather, that discernment, that strength, those boundaries. And when somebody is using tobacco and being shown that their boundaries are not strong enough to be able to handle that spirit, then they need to stop and start honoring that spirit. Because that spirit's might turn on them, you know, like that tobacco medicine might see that your boundaries are not strong enough. And so he's not going to be giving you the same level of respect, because the tobacco that is seeing that you are also not respecting your body. You're not respecting the tobacco's body, the sacrament. And so you need to create, or anyone that is dealing with this tobacco addiction needs to create and reestablish this trust with that spirit before ever considering having a good relationship with it. So that's kind of what I was seeing. Thanks for all those hearts. I personally have great honor for tobacco and do not smoke it myself, except very rarely in like a time of deep prayer. Somebody else that spoke wide, you know, a dear friend of mine, Ishel, actually was sharing how, you know, tobacco is, you know, every breath out of tobacco is an opportunity to send our prayers to Creator. And so thinking, you know, of how many people that are exhaling, using tobacco to calm themselves or during times of stress, and they're exhaling stress. Their prayers are of stress. Their prayers are of, you know, what are we really praying for when we are breathing and exhaling? And think of all those prayers that are going on to the planet, the millions of people that are subconsciously praying in a way that is not beneficial to humanity as they smoke. So that's a little bit on tobacco. Thank you for that question, Mary. I really respect that plant and, you know, desire for a greater sense of like renewal of the sacred connection in a good way with that. So thank you all for coming. I want to seeing you, Paris and Leah and Iris Eve and Tamara. Oh my goodness. Who else is on? Emma Cat. Oh, and Emma Cat, my dear, I have to, you know what, I think I might have, I'm going to squeeze one more question in because I think there's only one more question, and my daughter I got her on the bus today, so I don't have to zoom out right away. Okay, so, yay, one more question! And then I gotta go. All right, my dear. So, this one is from Miss Emma Cat, and then that is the last question. So, Emma Cat, my dear, she says, hello, Sarah. Curious if there are any messages from the Invisibles for me about relationship with my beloved. Thank you, dearie. All right. Well, let's see what they have to say. We can tell that something is not flexible in your relationship. Something that is not flexible enough to be able to support the next or stages of growth that will take a lot of practice and time and training between the two of you. So we see this image, this symbolism of an athlete, or any time that anyone is, is listening or experienced learning a new way of holding their body, whether it's a strength, being able to hold more, being able to stretch more, and all of a sudden, you've opened a doorway to many new stretches, many new ways of exploring your body that you never were able to reach before. It's almost as if you've graduated. And now you're at the next stage, you're at the next school level where you are the youngest, yet you have enough maturity between the two of you, that you have enough tools, but maybe all around you see that there is a flexibility that hasn't been established enough between the two of you. And specifically, they want me to translate. So specifically, I'm like, there's this I'm hearing the flexibility is connected with the ego in some way, and that there's something that maybe okay. I'm going to go back. They want me to go back in. Okay. But the ego is not what is harnessing the power that's needed. The ego is capable of protecting you in your relationship. The ego is here to support the needs of yourself and your partner, because the ego can relate to the humanness between each of you. But when we got Sarah to say that the ego was what was not flexible enough, what we really mean is that a quality of choice or a decision that needs to be made, but the ego is preventing it from being made to protect something, to keep the relationship in some ways at a standstill, while many things still develop and are explored. There is a standstill that is happening in an aspect of the relationship because the ego doesn't feel safe enough or have enough tools to be able to trust that whatever ricochets or whatever happens in this process of taking down the next layer, the next barrier, the next protective wall, that you and your partner will be able to handle. What flexibility and what new ways of approaching each other and life and maybe other people will look like. There's a scar somewhere in your partner, maybe in his familial line, maybe they want me to say this, kind of like seeing like a mother, they were saying like the mother's daughter, so I could be, I'm not quite sure who they mean. Sometimes it could be grandmother's daughter, but that there's some sort of scar possibly in your partner's family line. I don't know how many generations. Okay, it could be like even as far as like 2 to 3 generations back, but there's some sort of scar that is actually creating some sort of, it feels like it's in their, like the genetics, the genes. I can tell that for the most part you're, oh wow, I see a very big bird being chased by a little bird right now. Interesting. I think it's a hawk or a vulture. But the image I'm having is that there's something that your partner he's open to exploring, but that's needed for you both to explore. But the wound is buried enough that it's hard for him to feel that, or to intellectualize that how he's trying to protect himself or your relationship is actually because of a wound instead of because of a deeper knowing, if that makes sense. So I'm seeing that, and that's where the ego can get a little tricky. The eagle has the eagle from the ego to the eagle. So, is your partner, or are you guys coming from a place of protecting from wounds, protecting the wounds, or are you coming from a place of waiting to see if the coast is clear, like the eagle, waiting to see if you guys are flexible enough? And sometimes to become flexible enough is going to require you to take down whatever that barrier is. I'm sure, I don't know, Amiket, if you have ideas on what they're talking about, but I just want to send some strength, and maybe even just knowing that there is a wound that might be fueling this and not necessarily a truth. Yeah, there's some hearts. Not necessarily like a truth that's being fueled from source itself or from a pure sense of source and within you. So just knowing that is going to be really helpful for you guys. And I see your partner's willing, but he needs to, or she, but probably they need to get to what that wound is, and it might not be the best for you to be the one supporting them getting there. It's kind of my feeling, though you will be there to be supportive, but I'm seeing that there's something that before they can fully open to this new flexibility, they have to address something that's deep, that's being protected. So blessings to you guys, and trusting in the journey that each of us are on, and sending you so much love. And I'm so open for feedback. So if anyone ever wants to send me any messages after, I've got to get off and get ready to pick up my daughter. But, feedback for this, I have links at the top. I'm going to repost them, but I have I have like a YouTube channel, and I do personal work with a different process, not the invisible. I work with guides, but more in the spirit plane. Hi, you all. And you can see my process, and it's called Deep Soul Journeys. And I also, if anyone wants, if you go through my website, there's like a free kind of check-in. So we can do like a little free, like a 30-minute call where we can talk together, and I can just hear where you're at and maybe have some advice, or go further from there. So I love you all, and thank you so much for jumping on board, and for all of you that are watching in the future. I hope some of this has been helpful for you, and I will have the minutes posted later, so if you want to go back to different topics, you can just see the minutes and kind of scroll to that point on the recording. So this is so much fun, by the way. I mean, so thank you all, and just have a beautiful day on this planet, wherever you may be, and sending love to your journey. I am out. The invisibles are out and in. And I guess the last thing I will say is that I am doing this every Wednesday. So I'm creating a commitment to myself in this work, and also to all of you guys. So every Wednesday, I'll give a heads up if I'm not able to make a Wednesday, but for now, if you want to mark it on your calendars, every Wednesday at 2:30 Pacific Standard Time, I think that's 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, I will be here on Facebook Live, and you are welcome to bring your questions. And if you can't stay for the whole transmission, you can throw a question on, and I will answer it, and then, or me and the Invisibles will answer it, and then I will send you the minute. So that is that. Aloha and the bell.